most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Fouché Way radio show, live every Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m., sponsored by my nonprofit organization called Canine Hope for Improvement Program, where we hope to improve the quality of our dogs' lives by moving towards a no-kill society. The number here is 818-602-4929. Well, before we get started with our two callers today online, I want to mention the seminar last Thursday and thank everyone that took the time out to come and be a part of the event, because you filled the house. And to do this properly, I've asked Lori from Downtown Dog Rescue to come on the air today and give a proper thank you to all those lovely people who were instrumental in making this happen. And I want to first say thank you, Lori, for believing and putting into action the things that I talk about. I just want to say that first.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you very much. And we want to first thank LA Trade Tech College and everybody there that allowed us to use their beautiful new space. It looked like the Disney concert hall.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
a gorgeous space if
Beautiful.
you weren't there.
Yeah.
And then we want to thank Council Member Jan Perry, who gave us the approval to use the space, this public space. It's so gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And thank her office for being so supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And our volunteer, Sandy Zaligent, who's with Keeler Williams Real Estate Office in downtown LA.
Mm-hmm.
She tirelessly, kind of sent emails and got all that, just all the logistics of it.
Mm-hmm.
We want to thank Nick Carranza for designing our beautiful flyer that got the word out with
Yes.
Planet Spec.
Yes.
And Debbie Fan and Deb Vigna of Safe LA, who kind of organized the whole presentation and worked with Brandon very closely.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Safe LA volunteers, Marissa Hart and Lola McKnight, who made lists and signed people in and did all kind of behind the scenes, support staff that, you have to put together a seminar. And of course, all my volunteers that just helped me get the word out and organize the whole seminar, because it's a lot of work. I mean, Brandon can tell you more. It's not just a little event.
Well, I wanted to bring you on to give you, the chance to give the proper thanks. And because, all those people that you just mentioned, they actually made it look easy. They made me look good. And I wanted to say thank you, Because I got to say.
You were very good.
Well,
you were very good.
Well, if I was, I want to say it's because of the place, the lighting, the people that were there. Really made me feel comfortable and feel at home. And I'm really happy that we were able to do that. I think that the amount of people that showed up and filled the house was an example of that. So I want to say thank you. Yeah.
One more person I forgot. Let's not forget the beautiful photography that you will see on the Fouché Way Facebook site, Marco Saldana.
Oh, yeah.
He is a great volunteer and took wonderful photos.
He sure
Thank
did.
You, Marco.
I'm so glad you mentioned him. I would have been upset if once I heard this program and realized that we didn't give him a thanks,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Lori. I know you're a very busy person, and we're going to get right into the show and talk to our guests, because we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about today, okay?
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Our first caller is Megan. Megan is from Washington, D.C., and she has a dog named Bo. Megan, can you tell us about Bo? This guy was really intense when I saw him, and I want you to tell our listeners what's happening there.
Yeah, so Bo is a German Shepherd Lab mix, and I've had him for about a year. When I got him, I planned to get, this perfect dream dog that I could bring around my friends' dogs and basically take anywhere. So somehow I ended up with Bo, who I found out was leash aggressive. I was leaving the rescue organization the very first day I got him, and he pretty much tried to attack another dog that was walking by. But, we thought, okay, well, we can work on leash aggression. He's been going to the dog park, and he's been okay. So we started working with a treat trainer, and, that it helped a little bit, but it didn't make much of a difference. And after a few months, it almost seemed like he was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So we continued to use treat training and taking him to the dog park. But then he got into a couple fights at the dog park, so I decided I would never take him back again. And he was at doggy daycare, so he was still getting that outlet with other dogs because he has such a high level of energy. And he started getting in fights with other dogs at daycare. And around the same time, he also developed some separation anxiety. So I was in this really sticky situation where I couldn't leave him because he would try to escape from crates or tear apart my apartment, but I also couldn't take him anywhere because if he was on leash, he would try to attack other dogs. If he was off leash, he would try to attack other dogs. We went to another training organization, but it still didn't seem to make him any better. If anything, he just seems to be getting worse because he continues to get in more fights, and the time intervals would be closer together where he would fight with other dogs until he was finally kicked out of daycare.
Now, how long have you been going through this, Megan?
Going through this?
Yeah.
It's been a year.
So a year of seeking help from different people and going to different daycares and trying to do the dog park and the walk thing for a year.
Exactly. I mean, trying to just figure out a way to burn his energy so he'd be tired at the end of when I would leave him during the day. And
and what are some of those things that you were doing to try to tire him out? Because this is a lot of stuff that people do too. They believe that the physical aspect is a way to solve the problem. So what were you doing?
Right. Well, one was taking him. I think my friends and family thought I was crazy because I would walk him at least 2.5 hours a day, if not more.
Wow.
But then I didn't have a yard, so I was taking him to a tennis court and throwing a tennis ball for him.
Mm-hmm.
Before I would go to the dog park, but since that became a thing that we couldn't do anymore, it was just trying to get to the tennis court at 5 a.m. before everybody else showed up, or late at night, people weren't there.
Well, let me ask you, when you went to the dog park, before he actually started getting into the fights, I mean, what was the routine at the dog park? You'd go there and do what? What did it look like?
Oh, it was embarrassing. We would walk up to the dog park, and he'd be lunging and barking and howling and making a scene, and I'd be telling all the people in the dog park, don't worry, he's not aggressive. Once he gets in, he'll be okay. He'd get in, he'd take off, run circles around the dog park with all the other dogs chasing him.
Of course.
And I mean, just never calm down the entire time. We'd stay at the dog park sometimes for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and he would run almost the entire time.
Wow. And did you take toys?
Excited. I'm sorry, what?
Did you take toys also, like a ball, to the park with you?
I didn't take toys, but there were always toys at the dog park. So that's another thing he would do. He'd run in, grab a toy, and just start running around and getting all the other dogs to chase him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what would happen? Were you able to stop him or slow him down at any point?
No, I had zero control. I mean, and that's why I realized I needed to stop going, because I couldn't get his attention. There was just no stopping him. I'd basically have to catch him when it was time to leave and drag him out of the park.
Okay. And so this went on for a period of time, and then when did the fight, tell us about the first fight.
The first fight, so I guess I was taking him to the dog park for 2 months, and then the first fight we went in, and it was a big bulldog who was very well behaved, but I ran up to him really energetic, and I think the dog really just didn't like the way Bo approached him, so he corrected him, and Bo fought back, so and that happened again 2 nights later. Then the worst time was probably when I took him to my fiance's family's, and they have a big boxer who was just not okay with the way Bo was acting, and they got in a really big, traumatic, scary fight, and that's when I decided, I didn't want to take him to the dog park ever, but I did continue sending him to doggy daycare because at that point they were telling me that he wasn't having any issues and he was getting along with all the dogs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now how old was he at this time?
Oh, he was young. He was probably 6 months, 7 months.
So 6 or 7 months.
7.
Those are right in the phases when I call it the teenage years, where they're becoming a teenager, just like teenagers now, and they feel like, well, nobody understands me, my parents don't understand how I feel, and they're riding on their own high,
Right.
Okay, so now you're at the doggy daycare, and they're telling you things are fine.
Mhm.
And what happened?
They're telling me things are fine, and it was actually a backyard daycare, so the man would take Bo to the dog park sometimes, and then he attacked a little dog at the dog park. So they stopped going, but he still let him be in his backyard. But he then got into a couple fights. One time I was there, and I was all alone, so we kind of chalked it up to Bo being protective of me. But then the last fight, he was out of nowhere just attacked a smaller dog, and that's when the doggy daycare guy decided that Bo shouldn't come back.
Okay. So now you're kicked out of doggy daycare. Just you and Bo. Now wait a minute. You're married, right?
At that point, I'm engaged.
You're engaged, okay. And so he's trying to help you out too, right?
He is, but at that point, he was away for training.
Okay. So it's all...
What brought him to L.A.
So you're all alone.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling now? You're kicked out of the dog park. You're kicked out of daycare.
I was just a mess. I mean, so many tears have been shed over Bo because I think, one, I had physical exhaustion from trying to walk him enough to wear him out.
Right.
Two, I was emotionally exhausted because, I love this dog, but when he does those things every time, it just scared me and made me think, can I really handle him? And can I really provide a good life for him?
Wow.
So, yeah, just exhausted, sad.
Now, you're talking to people while this is going on, friends and neighbors?
Yeah.
And what are...
my coworkers thought I was crazy. They were like, why are you keeping this dog? You just need to get rid of the dog. He's making your life miserable. I think my friends and family were really supportive. They're all dog lovers. So I think they were all becoming a little emotionally exhausted too, though, because they would get so many teary phone calls from me.
Really?
We did it again.
It's so funny. I always talk about this, and you remind me when you say this phone call you made to your parents crying, kind of reminds me of hearing about relationships that go bad, right?
Right.
And you're crying, calling family members. He did it again, right?
Yeah. And I have this network of friends and family who love dogs, and the very last fight, I was shocked because a few of them were finally I don't know, maybe you do need to get rid of him because it's just so draining.
Wow. Now, when they say get rid of him, what are they talking about? They give you suggestions?
Well, no, because honestly, I think everybody knew it wouldn't happen. I've put so much into him already, and he's got a great personality, so nobody wanted him to have to go back to the pound or anything like that. I don't think we ever really fully thought about what it would mean to get rid of him because we just really didn't want to have to do it.
Wow. And so it's like you're living in prison with your dog.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. I feel like I'm on house arrest sometimes.
And so you're waking up. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's getting better now, but yeah, I feel like I can't go places because I have this dog and I can't bring him with me, and
Yeah.
I'm still trapped.
So you're waking up early in the morning before anyone gets up and taking him out to the tennis court, trying to throw a tennis ball to tire this dog out, still trying to fulfill his needs,
Right.
thinking that one day something's going to happen and maybe he's going to be a good dog, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Always having that hope.
So you called up some trainers.
Yeah.
And-
I called. I used a few different trainers, but nobody would specialize in working with aggressive dogs. And when I finally found one, I think she taught me some good things, but she wouldn't work with him with other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like where the root of the problem was, we couldn't really address it with the trainer. We had to go out and try it on our own, and I was too traumatized and nervous to be able to try to work with other dogs by myself.
Right. Because he's a tall dog. He's not a small dog.
Right. Yeah. He's strong.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm curious. How did you hear about me? You're in Washington, D.C. What happened?
Yeah, well, I found out we were moving to L.A. and immediately started Googling trainers for Bo. And you were, a few came up, but I listened to your radio show. I loved that you had the support of rescue organizations because it seemed like, I got Bo from a rescue, and rescues often deal with dogs like this. So I felt comfortable knowing that you are already part of this larger community of people with aggressive dogs.
Yeah, it makes me feel comfortable too, because there are times I need to talk to people.
Yeah, exactly. This whole process has helped me in a lot of ways, but one way is just being the fact that I'm talking to other people who are having problems too, and I don't feel like I'm the only one anymore, or Bo's the only one anymore.
Yeah, this is the purpose of this radio show, because we're trying to build a group of people who can come together, that are like-minded, that are going in the same direction, and they can help you. We can talk to each other and say that, hey, you're not the only one that's going through these problems, and we're coming out on the other side. You can come out on that side with us. That's
Right.
huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
We can no longer look at it from the concept of you got a bad dog and my dog is fine, and so I don't want to have anything to do with you. We want to bring you along. We want to say, hey, you got problems, come over here. Let's see if what we're learning over here can help your dog.
Right.
I can't think of a better reason for people to come together,
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, we don't want to give up our kids.
And well, yeah, you learn, whether or not you're a true dog lover because, I had the easiest dog in the world growing up. I didn't realize that dogs could cause this much stress in your life.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so you're seeing both sides of the spectrum.
Oh, yeah. I have a totally different view of dogs now.
Wow. Okay.
No.
If you're a person out there like you were, Megan, and you don't have problems with dogs, when you hear us talk about this, I don't think you can even imagine what people like you are going through.
Oh, no, I had no idea. I remember seeing dogs from, across the street that would bark and lunge at us with my old dog, and I was thinking, God, those people need to train their dogs.
Right, let me stay away from them, right?
Yeah. We put nothing into training our old dog, and Bo, I put so much into training, and he's still not perfect like that one.
Right. And I want to talk about when you first came to my place, and you told me over the phone, you told me how he was, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting. I had no idea until you walked up to my facility. I said, she must be here. I could hear this guy outside.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's loud when he wants to be.
Yeah,
crier.
Right. I hear a lot of dogs, they bark and they have the aggressive tendencies, but this guy was so over the top that all he had to hear were keys jingling, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I was always trying to tell people he's not aggressive towards people because he'd hear keys from behind us and he'd lunge at the people until he realized that there was no dog there.
Exactly. And I mean, he's barking in the air and lunging and pulling, and he's just an alligator on the end of a leash.
Pretty much.
All right, so I brought him in, and I mean, he's doing his thing for sure. A really good-looking dog, and those who have been to the Facebook page, you can see him there. Bo, really good-looking dog. I sat down to talk to you, and you were telling me about how you feel about what's going on, and I told you, well, just leave him here and pick him up this evening, and I'll talk to you about him and tell you what's going on. And I want you to tell the people how you felt when we were talking.
Well, when I was talking to you, I felt comfortable. I felt like you knew dogs, and I just needed to put my faith in you. And I think I said, too, can you actually keep him for 3 days? Because
right.
we're just here, and I didn't want to deal with him while I was trying to get moved in. So I felt really comfortable talking to you, and I was excited that there would be change for Bo. But I think I told you as soon as I left, I was just waiting for your phone call to say you've got to come get him. He did something bad, and
you actually called me. And I was surprised at how calm you were. Were you really that calm? Because you were pretty calm. Hey, I'm just calling to check on Bo.
No, you should have heard the conversation with my fiance before I called. It was like, should I call? Do you think he'll get annoyed? Is it a good idea? Do I want to know? So I finally decided to call, but it was, will I find out that he did something bad and I have to come get him?
Yeah.
So no, I wasn't that calm.
Okay. Well, okay, so you finally came, and, I have this normal routine. I sit you down, we talk about it, I tell you what's going on. And, I told you that, you got a good dog here. It's not uncommon, right? It's not uncommon for the reactivity of a dog's nervous system to be so high, that this energy is so high that they become aggressive. Okay?
Right.
Stress can lead to aggression. Now, it's just very interesting to hear you say, well, you really got to get to know him, or just let him get in a dog park. He's really not an aggressive dog, and then the other, as soon as he gets there, he starts doing some aggressive stuff. So when I hear you say that, that's telling me something. I'm saying, this is a good dog. The reactivity of his nervous system is so high that the adrenaline level goes up, and the only way that we know to bring that adrenaline level down is to do something physical to the dog, like hold him back on a leash.
Right.
Or make him sit or stay or down or heel, right? And because those hormonal traits are different from the one that's in place, meaning that they don't have as much power as the one that says go forward, we actually create more stress in our dogs. So we're actually producing the thing that you don't want. And so in order to work with Bo, we have to release that energy, and we've got to flow with it, but in a controlled environment. Okay? Now, when I showed you the videos of him with other dogs, what were you thinking?
Well, I told you, I think that my heart was beating really fast because I was impressed, and I was like watching the videos waiting for something bad to happen. But then the more we watched them, the more I saw, wow, he's being normal. I mean, he's not even, he put his tail down and his ears back eventually. And I was just, I've never seen him act like that around other dogs.
Yeah, because this is flowing with energy. See, when you can give them what they need as dogs, and that's my motto, I give my dogs what they need as dogs first, and then I ask them what I want from them from the domesticated point of view. Okay? And so when we put him with these dogs, and you can see the hair, he looks like a Ridgeback,
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, because he's not sure what's going to happen. And then as he comes through this thing, you see the tail drop, the ears drop, and he says, you know what? I get this. You know? I get this. And, I allow this humping to take place because I know chemically what's happening there. And, one day we'll talk about what this humping means, but it actually helps to balance him so that the hormones are working properly. We just have to know about the timing and when to insert ourselves in the equation. And that's what I'm going to be teaching you next because, even though you see this is happening with him, he has moved on, but you're still in the same place. That fear has got you captured.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, and our neighborhood has lots of off-leash dogs that run towards us, and I feel it in myself every time. I get very nervous.
Right, and I remember when you mentioned that to me, and then you said, I'm going to bring him back again before we go on the show. And you said, well, you're really worried about these small dogs. And so when you brought him back this time, I just threw him in with small dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another stop.
Yeah, another. Mm-hmm. It kind of, you're like, what? And I wanted you to see that because I'm actually preparing you now for what I'm going to be having you do. See, look, we create the reality that our dogs live in. But if you can't see the reality that you're creating, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it, okay? And now it's time to work on you. This is the human side.
I totally agree.
And this is the fear side that we're dealing with. And before we work, I want to say something to you today because I'll explain this more as we go along. You hear people say that you shouldn't be afraid, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to understand something. Fear is a good thing. It will protect you. There is not a day that I don't walk out and release 20, 30, 40, 50 dogs together that were formerly aggressive and not think about the fear of something happening. But that fear allows for me to have a backup, a back door. If this happens, I'm going to do that. If that happens, I'm going to do that. So that fear actually is where I get my power from. Okay? You know, fear controls everything. You don't jump out of your car without looking for fear of someone hitting your door. Right? You don't step out in the street without the light changing for fear of someone hitting you in their car.
Yeah. You said that the first day too, and I just keep trying to remember that on these walks when I see loose dogs.
Right. I've got to show you how to direct that fear, what to do now when this happens and when that happens. Mm-hmm. And how to be afraid of not being able to connect to your dog emotionally. I want to teach you that. These are different ways of looking at our dogs, which has nothing to do with training. It has to do with the relationship. This is a whole new way of looking at aggression. And so I want you to have faith in this thing, Someone mentioned to me before that faith is the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things not yet seen. But you are beginning to see this. That's why I took him first and showed you.
Yeah.
This is who Bo really is. But when
and I think a lot of it is me. And if I had gone back with you the first time, you may have seen a different Bo because I think he feeds off of the energy that I'm putting out there.
That's fine. That is the relationship that you have given him, and you said, hey, Bo, this is real. This is what we have. Okay? You created a reality for him that he believes, and then, when he sees a dog in that reality, he says, what are you doing in my reality? What are you doing here? Right? So we want to show you.
Run away now.
Right. I want to show you how to get past that. So this is a really interesting case, and I want to follow this closely. I want people to follow you closely because, you're fresh right now. There are other listeners out there that have gotten to a point that now they're at the point where you are at the point. They've seen what their dog can do. Now it's time to fix them. okay,
Right.
and to understand how this fear is going to work. So I can't wait to talk to all of you together, and we'll talk about it on the show about how to deal with this fear. Okay?
Oh yeah, I can't wait to talk about that too.
Right.
And I told you too, I feel so lucky that we somehow ended up moving to Los Angeles, because in DC I just don't think we would have been able to find help. And so now I think Bo is going to get the chance to be a real happy, best version of himself kind of dog.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, and thank you, but I see it in Bo's face. And I'm going to be posting those videos for you that you can see this guy smiling and running with his head up, and he's just saying, this is wonderful. I'm in dog utopia,
Yep, loves other dogs apparently.
Yeah, he loves them because he sees the control that's there. They need leadership. Okay?
Right.
Contrary to what people think, love and affection cannot be successful without leadership. Okay? And so he sees the power there. He's hardwired to it. He accepts it, which allows for him to become Bo and not what he became. He's become the real Bo. And you'll see this in these videos that you haven't seen yet. I'm going to post them for you. Okay?
Okay.
So I want you to continue to come to me, Megan. And, you haven't done rehabilitation. You've only had one evaluation and one daycare. And look at Bo.
Right.
He's doing great. So, we've got a long way to go, but really it's not that long a road to go on. It's going to be really enjoyable because each time he comes, it's going to be a ray of sunshine. It's going to make you happy.
I mean, Tuesday after when we left, he was a different dog than he was on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how easy and that's how quickly this thing works when you're looking at it from the concept of nature, not from the way humans think. Because we think in a way that the fear that I'm talking about that I use to make me strong, we think from that fear phase and it takes us backwards. We restrict a lot of things that we should be letting go. And that's part of the Fouché way. And I'm going to be talking about that as we go along. Okay?
Okay.
Megan, I'm so happy that you came to Los Angeles from Washington, D.C. and brought Bo with you and that you're getting the help that you need. I can already hear in your voice that you're feeling like a different person too, and now your fiance is here with you, and he was there the first day you came, and I can see how he felt because when I talked to him, he was very happy also.
Oh, yeah, he is like so relieved right now, so happy.
And we have another guest that's on the line. I want you to hear from him too, Megan. This is Brian, and Brian is a very interesting story because Brian was actually at the seminar last Thursday. He drove all the way down to come and hear me talk because he's having a very common but heart-throbbing problem with two of his dogs. And Brian has two dogs. One, the name is Cooter and Jackson. Brian, were you listening to Megan?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
When you walked into my office, well, first, when you talked to me on the phone, I could hear in your voice a sense of desperation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was to that point.
Yeah, there's nothing like adopting a dog and then saying, I'm going to get him a friend, and then find out it's the friend from hell.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we get into it, I want you to tell us how you got to this point. Tell me what's happening. You adopted your dog, and tell us which one you adopted first.
Well, it goes back to a few months beforehand when I had two dogs. I had Bella and Willis, who were mother and son pit bull combo. Just the loves of my life. And Willis ended up passing away in January. And my brother was kind enough to bring down a black lab who belonged to a breeder friend of his who bred field trial hunting dogs.
Mm.
They had this one really special dog that had a great personality, and they thought he might be able to kind of soften the blow for that period of time. And so he came down to visit. And while he was visiting, I was in the process of searching for the dog that I was hoping to adopt for Bella to be permanent. And so I ended up finding Jackson online from a rescue website.
Good.
And approximately the same time I ended up basically adopting him, I got the word from the black lab trainer that if I wanted to keep Cooter, that I could keep him also. So I got Cooter 1 month before in January. Jackson came into the picture in February, and I had taken Cooter to go visit Jackson twice beforehand before he moved in, just to make sure that they got along, and they seemed to get along fine. They didn't play or anything. They didn't seem like they kicked it off, right away as far as being best buddies, but there didn't seem to be any problems. No, nothing that I noticed as far as aggression or whatever. So I went ahead with both dogs, and it wasn't a month later before we were all in the backyard, and I was throwing a stick for Cooter. He was the only one that really chased the stick. Jackson never really cared much for it, but just the whole interaction of me throwing the stick and Cooter getting it and Cooter coming back to me and giving it to me, it was kind of revving Jackson up, and they started wrestling and fighting, and it started off kind of harmless at first, and it was definitely they weren't playing. That was clear, but it wasn't, they weren't trying to kill each other. But really it was just a progression. And I should mention at this point that they were both intact, which, for some people is a factor. So they were both intact. They started fighting, and the fighting started to get worse and worse. And as soon as the first injury came about, which was just like a big what do you call it? Just like a bump on Jackson that had to get drained. I mean, this is a vet visit and little
starting to get expensive now.
Yeah. So once we realized that it was getting serious, then we started separating them. The house became segregated, and it would be let Cooter out, put him away, let Jackson out. So it was not the ideal life by any means that I was looking for by adopting dogs. I was slowly unraveling, and I think the second time that Jackson lost every fight. He kind of starts every fight and loses every fight. He's a smaller dog.
Yeah, he's a small guy. Yeah.
Yeah. But by his second injury, I took him to the vet. I was talking to my vet and I was getting desperate. I'm like, I got to do something, and he suggested 2 dog trainers that they work with. So I immediately called both of these dog trainers who are not affiliated with each other. But oddly enough, they both said the exact same thing to me over the phone on the very first call. They said, you know what? I could come up to your house and take some money for an evaluation, but what I would end up telling you is exactly what I'm going to tell you right now. So I'm not even going to take your money and come up there. Your dogs are never going to get along. They'll never fight. I mean, they'll never get along, and every fight that they have from this point on is just going to get worse and worse until one of them ends up dead. And they both said the exact same thing, like word for word. So needless to say, I was discouraged, to say the least.
You thinking you got to get rid of him, huh?
Yeah, I mean, by this point, I had kind of started to think, well, hey, I got Cooter first, so maybe Jackson's the first one to go, and kind of trying to plan something out like that. But, I mean, with every day that went by, I was getting more and more attached to both these dogs and didn't want to give them up, I mean, I literally cared so much for them that I was worried that what kind of home they would get and all that kind of stuff. And of course, knowing now that I realized that the problem would have just continued with the next owner anyways. But yeah, it was basically just time went on, and we just kept them separated, kind of with no plan. I mean, I didn't want to get rid of them. I knew they weren't happy together. I was just kind of stuck in purgatory with them.
For how long now?
Well, they were separated for 6 months.
6 months of crating and rotating.
Yeah, 6 months. And I mean, we're humans, and mistakes would happen. We had double locks on gates and multiple doors set up, but things would happen, and they would get at each other, and it was like a full attack mode, just beeline towards each other, fight to the death. And they were certainly trying. And there was actually one fight where Jackson almost died. My roommate was with the dogs at the time, and had Peter had Jackson down on the ground, pinned by the neck. He said he was like basically lifeless until he got Cooter off of him. I mean, it was serious stuff. I mean,
well, Brian, man, there are listeners out there listening to you, and you're a guy, and there are women out there that are going through the same thing too. But there are a lot of people who get dogs, and of course we want another dog, and our intentions are to create happiness, more love, and and it's very interesting that when we get a dog, we've never been taught how to introduce them to each other in the home where they can live comfortably together. And what happens is, in your particular case, you brought the two dogs home. These are what I call tolerators. They're dogs that don't play. They accept each other. They are tolerators. They haven't really defined the relationship. They're just accepting. It's like you meet someone in the street, and you say hello, and you're kind of around each other at an event, let's say. But you haven't developed any relationship. You're just tolerating each other. You're not bothering me, I'm not bothering you. Okay? And so there are some dogs that are like that. If they don't meet right away and start interacting, what we call play, the human, where they're right away trying to figure out where they fit in, who is more dominant than the other without actually fighting. That's what play really is. If they're not doing that, then you have to be careful, because they're looking for a reason to define the relationship. Whether it turns out good or bad, it has to happen. And then you've got an interesting thing here, because you have one dog that has been bred to be a retriever. Okay? And so it's natural for you to start throwing things.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'm about to say now is really important, because this is somewhat of what the seminar was about. You've got one dog that's a retriever, and you've got one dog that's not a retriever. Okay? So one dog is chasing after an inanimate object, and one dog begins to chase after the real deal.
Yep.
So one's chasing an inanimate object, and one is chasing the other dog. It happens a lot at the dog park. Okay? Because the one that's chasing after the inanimate object is going after it as though it's prey. So it's in the prey mode, a predatory instinct to chase down something, what we call a soft mouth, where they gently pick it up and bring it back. Okay, that's something that we bred into dogs. But the other dog is looking at it as prey too, but it's the other dog that's prey. So that instinct, that hormone that he has in him, is directed for the kill to the other dog. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we like to play ball with our dogs. And it's fine if the dog is subordinate by nature, if it's not misinterpreting the intentions, but not all dogs think that way in the domesticated form. They're so close to the wild that when you produce the hormone, it's in place. Okay? And so now you got two dogs that are tolerating, and then you begin to introduce this game of throwing something, which now kicks everyone into prey drive, right? And then what happens is the dogs are running, they collide with each other, boom, the fight begins, and that defines the relationship.
Yeah, and that was it. Yeah. That was their relationship.
It happens all the time. It happens that way all the time. And so now when they look at each other, they say, oh, now I know how to feel about you, because something emotionally happened that I can connect to you, because we didn't define it at first. My leader was not able to get us along first to define how our relationship was going to be. You see where I'm going?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
when you bring two dogs home, I'm talking to our listeners now, and you find that they don't start interacting right away, chances are they are tolerators. And the way that you have to deal with tolerators is you have to continue to allow for them to tolerate and do things together, like traveling together. Just simply traveling, moving, hiking, nothing that has to do with agility or bringing out the predatory instincts in a dog or creating excitement, which can lead to jealousy, which can lead to what's going to define the relationship. Just calm. Because ultimately, after all of the hoopla is over with having the dog, that's basically what you're going to want. Jump in the car, let's go down to the park, let's go down to the coffee shop, let's go to the store, let's come back, let's go in the house, right? Just calm. But we start off doing everything but that. And then whatever happens emotionally defines the relationship. So that's what happened with your two guys. And so now you called me and you decided, you know what, I'm going to take that ride down there. Where were you coming from, Brian?
San Diego.
San Diego, to come to the seminar. And I want to hear, what did you feel when you got to the seminar? And I mean, what did you think about it?
Well, the state of mind I was at, I was kind of at my last resort, so I was just riding on full optimism and hope, and I immediately started to get a sense of relief, watching the videos at your seminar and hearing and just seeing your attitude about dogs that have aggression, and it just didn't seem to worry you too much. I mean, obviously there's fear that helps us focus through all this, but it didn't seem, like anything that was out of control. And so I got a really good sense that you knew what you were talking about, and seeing the videos that there are other dogs in situations like mine. And, I mean, I was ready to go. I was excited and ready to learn at that point. Right. And like I said, I was desperate. So I was just, I was ready to latch on.
Well, we're going to move forward a little faster, Brian. You came to my place. You saw your dogs together after 6 months. I mean, how does that feel?
It's mind blowing. I mean, it's really mind blowing. The sense of relief and encouragement, and just it's amazing to. Because I was optimistic, but that really didn't mean that I knew that it was going to work by any means. All it meant was that I had a blank slate going into it. I wasn't committed that it wasn't going to work anymore, And so, in fact, I actually showed up a little bit early to pick up the dog, and was parked outside of the center, and I saw Leroy come around the corner walking both my dogs together.
Right.
My jaw just hit the ground. I could not believe it. And that was, they had muzzles on, but come to find out once I went back inside with you guys, that they were sitting in the kennel together without muzzles. And so that just, it literally just blew my mind and just filled me with encouragement and excitement.
And what's really good about your story, and I wish we had more time to really get into it, is I'm walking you through a rehabilitation on your own over the phone.
Yep.
And this fear that you had too, you're a guy, we all have fear, and you're walking through your fear, and now you are starting to become strong, aren't you?
I do feel that.
Yeah.
I really do.
I mean, you've sent me video. You're putting your dogs in the same pen together. They're together now in that place where they were separated for 6 months. They are together, and you're calling me just like I ask people to do, as much as you can, to fill me in on what's happening. And I can hear in your voice each day that we talk. When you call me, I straighten you out about something. I give you a little more knowledge that makes you more comfortable. And now you're really beginning to start grooving now. This last conversation I told you on how to allow for them to be together in a way that you are controlling them at a distance. Do you see that you're controlling at a distance now?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now you went to the seminar, you saw the fight that we had on the video, and you saw how that was controlled verbally?
Yep.
Okay. You are in those areas now. How does that feel?
It's really amazing. I mean, people get dogs to love on them, and when you realize that all that you've been doing is really hurting them, it's heartbreaking, even if it is loving them to death. And it's heartbreaking. So to get a sense that I'm actually doing something that's making my dogs happier on a genetic level is I mean, I can't tell you how good that feels. I really can't.
Yeah, I mean, that's some big stuff, some serious stuff that you're doing over there. And because I want our listeners to know, I mean, this is one of the most difficult things that you can do when you have two dogs that are trying to kill each other, to actually go through this rehabilitation over the phone, do the things that you have to do, and then start seeing yourself come out on the other side. I mean, well, Brian, you can tell them. I mean, the way that feels, and you've got a way to go. You know that you've got more work
Absolutely.
to do. It's not.
It's definitely a process, yeah.
Right. And so, man, I just want to say I'm going to stick right with you through this thing and keep you on the right track. You see how important it is for you to call me. You see how important
Absolutely.
it is for me to, I never would have just helped you over the phone. You know now how important it is for you to come to my facility to see things happen so that you know what to do at home. I mean, you got to tell our listeners that, because people are always saying, tell us what to do.
Yeah, and I can totally understand that. But it is the truth. You need to go down and see Brandon, check out for yourself, and see it in person. And that is just step one, because it is a philosophy that you have to learn. It's a state of mind, and you can't explain it. Right. I mean, I wish I could explain that better, but it's something that you need to see. But once you do, that is the foundation for all optimism and the confidence and everything. So it's a necessary step. But I mean, just that one day will set you off on a different path. It's well worth the visit, to say the least. I mean,
fantastic, Brian.
Yeah.
Our time's rolling. I'm sorry we're at the end of the hour for the Fouché Ray Radio Show. I will keep in contact with you. Maybe we will have you on again. I want people to hear how this thing all pans out. And thanks again, Megan, Brian, thank you, and Lori from Downtown Dog Rescue. I'll talk to you next Thursday. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.